Hey everyone, it's AJ from Pixelize, and in this video I'm going to dive into WordPress database tables. Last time I made a video about the relationship of WordPress database, how they work, and just to wrap it up, you have to manually manage the relationship between the tables in WordPress. There's no constraints. That way it gives the flexibility and scalability for the developers, and as well, if you're not a developer and just building a website based on plugins, it gives you the flexibility as well. But if you're not a developer and using plugins, then it's better to watch this video, because then you could understand how the table actually work. So I'm just going to dive in and show you certain examples from looking from the local dev environment and the database. So I've migrated the website to the live host already, so I thought it'll be good to use this as an example. So once you log in, depends what your interface is going to look like. This is from the local by Flywheel, which I don't like this interface, but typically you have the PHP my admin interface. It doesn't matter, all the same things. It's just which one is easier to use it, I guess, and navigate. So when you go in, you can see your database tables all together here, but as well over here you see how much data is length in there. So post options and post meta with posts probably are the most one that gets used is the WP posts and the WP post meta, and this is where your posts, pages, custom post types, and all the other stuff are mainly stored. But the other tables are important as well to understand them, because for example you have a taxonomies, tags, and you need to know how they work, maybe, or where you could find them. So it'll be quite good to sort of dive into it. So if I cover first, on the left you can see we have the original WordPress tables, but then we have additional, because I installed the Lightspeed. We have a JetEngine and Bricks. I use the Bricks as a theme because most people are not technical, and then if you need something quick and easy, you just whack it out with that, and it's quite good and powerful. But you notice there's a WP links. WP links is not actually used anymore. You could think it as deprecated. There are some people that are still using it, but actually it's not that widely used. Same as WP 10 meta. It's not really used within the core of the WordPress itself, but it's there for developers, and I'm gonna show you or explain you how that actually works in a sec. But if you go through them and we go into options, over here it shows you the columns that you have, the type of data, and anything else, right? So we have a primary key, which would be option ID. Typically ID would be the primary key, and then we have a unique option name as well, identify there, and then an index as well. So we could actually, where's the there it is, right? So all these are primary key to be identified, but if you have a look at this, there's quite a lot of things that perhaps may be confusing. They're all over the place, right? At the moment it's the IDs that keeps them in line. But if you notice, we have a site URL and a home URL. So site URL is every time you install a WordPress and you have to put your domain name, is that what it's going to be as a site URL? And then that puts it as well as a home URL. But then we have a blog name and blog description. So if we go into admin and we go into the settings, the interesting thing is the WP options that you have here are the settings that you have here, right? So this is where all the information from WP options that sits from the settings, and you can additionally add additional options without even adding this to the dashboard over here. But from Bricks as well, you'll have information that will be saved into WP options for any configuration. So for example, if you have your license key to activate your theme from Bricks, your license is going to be stored in the WP options. So for example, let's say if they go out of the business for some reason, they're no longer trading, your theme won't be shut down because the key license is stored into your WP options. So you don't need to worry about that. The only obviously downside would be at that point is you won't get any updates or support because they are out of business if that happens. But you don't need to worry about obviously your theme being shut down. So mostly it works with pretty much most themes because they have to go through the plugin directory. But there's the other way you could use the plugins and themes without using the directory to have a better full control. But there's always pros and cons on how you do things, right? Well, if you have a look at the site title and the tagline, so this will be a site title, which is the name, the blog name, and this will be a tag. This would be a tagline, which is the name of the blog description. And the reason why you have that is because obviously WordPress originally started as a blogging platform, right? And it changed into more flexible and wider spread. So that way, they didn't change the names and just left there. You know, not a lot of people know it because only developers would sort of get it. The people that are just using drag and drops, they don't really care, right? But just to show you, let's say we put this, update this with some values, pixelize tutorials, and then let's say example. If I save, you always have to refresh it if you notice, because it's not immediately refreshes once you save it. There you go, blog description, pixelized tutorials. So you can see from the settings, you get most of those things are here. You probably will find some things from Lightspeed as well, but as well you'll find some things from like Bricks as well. So these are the WP options, so settings. Think of them as settings, the options as well. Another example here, just to give you, so you got users can register and we have a 0. So this is the membership, right? Anyone can register. The reason why it's 0 because it's using 0, 1. So 0 is a false value, which means it fails, so it's not true. And 1 is a true value, which means it's true, right? So if you use an if statement condition and you just pull out the option value, so this would be like your meta key, and this would be your meta value, like you have in the user meta or other sort of meta values over here, like post meta. So that will be your key, this will be value. So when they use the key in the if condition, they will know that it returns the value, and if it's 0, it will fail, right? But if we save the change and we go into number 6 ID here, you'll notice that this will update. You see? And then we're gonna uncheck it because I don't want anyone. It's only local, so that don't bother me, but just for I'll show you as an example. So this is your configuration. I'm not going to show you where my license is because obviously you're going to see my license. So it's not the right way. Now, rewrite rules. It's how they sort of do the URLs, right? So WordPress doesn't use typical MVC framework for routing. WordPress is built procedure coding. Let's say if you put this in sort of stats, you will have like 90% procedure coding and you have like 10% OOP, object-oriented programming. But they don't really use MVC pattern there. You know, they don't have a framework. They don't even use a framework like Laravel for MVC. So that's why it gives you the flexibility to build anything you want. You can build whatever you want, but whether it's the right tool to build it or not, it's up to you to decide there. I would approach WordPress with MVP, minimal viable product approach. And then if you see it's scaling, then go into more custom, because the security of WordPress is not too bad, but if you want to make it more secure, you have to add additional code, and then it could become painful to make adjustments and configuring. At that point, it's just better to go into more custom coded solution, which you would have a Laravel for backend, Vue for front end, and that way, trust me, is probably the best way to scale. You could use it as an MVP. That's what I would suggest you to do it. Never go with a full scale now. Now, the other thing I want to show you is this. You see this is called sterilized data. Compare to this. It's not sanitized, it's sterilized. So what that means is, let's say you have a associate array or object, and that object get turned into a sterilized, which is almost like JSON string, right? As you can see, which is a lighter version of a data to be inserted. So it's faster to pull it out and pull it in, and you could unsterilize it. If you're a developer, that's what you're doing there. If you're not a developer and let's say you migrated a website to a live host and you still have like links that still has a .local, right? Because when you migrate you have to update those links. So I did the video on migration. There's a video there showing you how to migrate there and how to update those links. But you would use a plugin because there's a plugin created for that, so you don't have to go into database. So if you go back, watch the video, you will see the plugin and that will automatically update for you, but you do have to update it. So the sterilized data is a lighter version of what you insert in there, a lot faster, and you could do it in a bulk instead of individual, right? So you could create, for example, bricks. Let's say bricks form submission. This is, by the way, where your form submissions are saved, whether using Elementor or bricks or whatever. They will create a table where all the forms are submitted, and it will be as a JSON type, right? String, depending on the form ID. So if I go another form ID, it will create another form, but it will show you it's a lighter version. So if we go into, let's say, post, this is where all the action happens, right? So if you notice here, it's quite a lot of data. It's limited to 50. But if you go across, post type, pages, posts, custom post types, all them, they're pretty much the same. They just identify them differently by posts and pages. So if you go page, you will put them as a page, not as a post. So for the post type, you would put a page, not post. But if you notice here, you got different post types. So you got attachment, which would be for your fonts when you upload them. And as well, you have a bricks fonts there. And if you scroll down, you got page, right? So if you go across and we look at that page, that's the front page. So it shows post name. We have the name of the post page. So pages. And I have a where is it? Home front page setup, right, on my settings. So we have here front page, then we have this setup as a global footer for the footer, and over here we have the name of that page, right? So we have home. But what I want to show you is that we have the ID 57, right? So this ID, it refers to a user that created this. As a post offer will be user ID that created. This ID refers to the column that's been created in a table. So if we go for 57 into post meta, you can see there's a lot of information here, right? Meta ID, which again refers to the column that's been created, and post ID refers to the post from the WP posts. And then we have a meta key, which is like what we had in where was it? In options, when you had a option name and the option value. That's basically meta key and the meta value. And there's a lot of information, but if we just put search where post ID equals 57. So over here we have a meta value, meta key, and all those that you saved on that post ID, which would be this, and we can check if that's the correct one. See over here it says post equals 57, so that's the ID of that post. So that page has ID. Each column has created a new ID for it. If you have a look, we have an edit log meta key and the meta value. Then we have a bricks template type, and it's going to be a content. And then we got bricks page content underscore 2, which we have all the, if I actually go into this, let's see. It's so small, I can't actually see it. I don't know if I can zoom it in. Oh, I can. You can see it looks like gibberish, but actually, if you look it through them, we have, for example, IDs, section, child, height. So all the information that you have in the builder, in the front end builder, it's all saved into this lightweight version of data to be stored. Look how big it is. It's not easy to understand it from a human eye point of view, but you could unsterilizer if you want to, and you can see JetEngine Query Builder. Yes, I have JetEngine Query Builder on my home page. Let me just quickly go in. I thought it'd be quite good to dive into this. Where did I see this? Yes, I use the CCT FAQs as well. You know, so everything that you have that on the front end saved, what you built on that page, it gets saved as this. So once that has, then obviously they use the meta key to return the value of it, and then that goes through the backend, right? And you can see breaks editor mode, breaks the type, content. You all tracks it by the ID. You know, obviously there's a bit more going to it, but that sort of gives you an idea how certain things work together. But anyway, when you create a blog post, page, custom post type, they are all in a WP posts. Every single one of them is here. All the information, as you can see, the user that created this, the date, the updated, I'm guessing that will be updated. You can see here post content, which is the default way that WordPress does it, which is a block editor style. As you can see, the comments. The post title, so we have a blog post and then page privacy, the status of it, any excerpt, publish, draft, comments with the open, on and close, ping status, post password, post name, so that will be like your Slack, I'm guessing. Post modified, post updated modification, post content filter, parent. If it belongs to any parent, there will be 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. Guide. So you have, obviously this will be a link of refer to that. So they will use this to load the privacy policy. I think is in the draft. This page, right? So in the MVC pattern, you will always have a controller. Let's say you have a URL, which is pretty URL, and then once the server goes onto that URL, it will trigger an action, like a method, and will load up whatever the file is. So kind of think in a similar way. Menu order, you go post types again, post mime type, and a comment count, right? So these are all the columns that you have for the post types, but you can see how many there are. So if you go to 5, see post titles. So every time you see this repeat, it's basically revision of that. So I would say set a limit on this, because it can make your website slower, you know, fetching the data. It's better to limit the revision type than have a not set. But any information you want to find about your posts, custom post type pages, it's always in WP posts. And then all the additional information you have over here. So you just need to use the ID for the post that you're working on, the key that's going to be used, and the value that's going to be assigned to it. Right? Now the terms is a little bit different way it works. So if you go WP terms, so over here we have all the categories. Doesn't matter if you save them from, let's say you create, like I did in JetEngine, the taxonomies, and I created project categories. That will be all going into the same area over here. So even if I add a tag as well from blogs, and I'll show you, say demo category, We could put a Slack for that if you want a description, but let's add. Let's refresh this. It goes over here, even though it's a custom post type, but under the WP terms, it goes over here. Even if I do a post tags demo tag, and it goes here. Now when you go to WP term taxonomy, you can see it will identify whether it's a tag. So this is the tag that I just created. The project category is the one that custom are made, right? And the category itself is the default categories that will be here, which we have one which is uncategorized, right? And the one you would name from taxonomies, obviously you have your names here, and this is where it goes, the Slack over. But you need to be careful how you name them, because if you name, for example, services here and you have a page services, it will cause confusion, and you might have an error where you want to load up a page, you open up and it doesn't look the same how you thought it would be looking. So you need to be very careful with that, otherwise you will end up getting an error where you build a page and the page all of a sudden has disappeared, and you might figure out what happened here. It's because of the Slack that you have, that it's literally the same. So I had this issue where I had a page. Let me just open. Let me just put a charger to my laptop because it's dying out. But if you go into pages, so I had services, and over here I had to name a services listing because my post types Slack had services and it was throwing me an error. So I had to add additional stuff for it, making sure it doesn't cause a confusion. So you need to be careful how you sort of build things, because it's stored in a database and it will fetch it and be used for the URL as well, and how the WordPress sort of works behind the scenes. Now if you go to WP terms relationship, you see there's an object ID. An object ID is basically your page, your post types. Those are the objects. So if we look at that as object ID 946, I think it's in projects. Is it this one? 946, and it's restoration category, which will have a 7. So if we go to WP terms, that has an ID of 7. So basically what that is doing is looking for the post type, blog post, custom post type. It has got number 9 ID of that. So we will set it here. It will then look for a taxonomy term ID that you will have in the WP terms. We'll assign it to that page, and the term order as well, if you have any sort of term order. Now the WP terms is not actually widely used at the moment by any sort of people that you build WordPress. Some developers may use it, and that's why you might see it empty. So it's additional meta fields that you could add, for example, for SEO. So let's say, for example, Yoast SEO could be using this. I know they create their own table, but they could be using it for Yoast meta description. They will have for example, a page ID, and they will have a meta key would be Yoast meta description, and the meta value would be the description add in, and then could be Yoast meta title, and then page ID, obviously. So that's what they could use as additional information, even for color. So you could have a page ID, you could have a color, and then you would have a color hex code or HSL, whatever it is, and that color would be assigned to that page ID that you have in it, and however you want to use it, right? So it's additional things. So that's why you see it at the moment empty, but you could utilize it to store additional information into it, or you could create your own table. But that's pretty much used for developers, so it's not actually inside the default WordPress user interface. You'll have to use code to actually use the WP term meta. So hopefully this sort of gives you understanding of how things are being tracked through WordPress. And like I said, you have additional information, tables created by others, so FAQs that I have created here, FAQs over here. So there's a custom content type, and if you go into we have the CCT status, which is publish, question, and the answer, which would be like option key or meta key, a meta value or option value, then the offer, which is the user who posted this, and the way they track this is from the users. And let's say you have additional, and that user might have ID 3, so it would have been ID 3 instead of 1. 1 is always the admin, when was created and when was modified. Same for testimonials that you create, custom content type, for workshops. I have post types, right? So here's a post type, testimonial type, no, project publish. So you could see it's all sterilized because the lighter version of to be served. See the name, so post type, custom post that's created, services listings over here. Yes, it's been published, because when we created post type, it's live, it's published. All the information, labels that you have, so everything over here, labels, right? Then you have arguments, which would be this, and then you have the meta field, which obviously are here. I haven't selected any, so if we have a look at the services listings, you see it's empty. But if I did add something, I don't know, let's say for example name, update post, boom, it has sterilized this. Every information that you have for that field in here, all those have been saved under the sterilized data, right? So hopefully this gives you an idea how sort of database works in WordPress. There is no constraints, which means you have to manually manage the relationship. It's a good and it's a bad thing as well. It depends what you're building. You know, if it's just a simple website for simple people, then, you know, small local business is fine. If you're doing more complex like directory, maybe you want to put a constraint like foreign key constraint, where a user creates an account, submits their business profile, but if they decide to remove the name from the account, the constraint will look for that user. If it doesn't exist any longer, it will remove all the data that they have posted, if you want to have that constraint, right? But yeah, hopefully that sort of, you know, navigated around there gives you a better idea how things are stored and they work. If you do have any questions, let me know in the comments. But what I would say, just go on your local machine, look into the database, have a look around, get familiar with it, because the more you're familiar with it, the better you will understand it, and makes you a better project manager to approach the project, because you will know how the WordPress works behind the scenes, right? You don't need to know the code, but as long as you know the database and how the front end works, you could figure out roughly how the backend would be able to fetch out and build a relationship and connect all the pieces and dots together. So hopefully this helps you. Any question, again, let me know in the comments, and I will see you on the next video.